knowing your story. And I think it has to be done in community with another person who can look into you and go, this thing that you think is normal and everybody does isn't normal. And everybody has that. 400 plus books now I'm into. The very best part of every author, almost everyone we've worked with, and I'd say probably the last 3 years, because it's become part of what we do. We can find things that they don't even know are there that become some of their hallmark stories, vignettes, and content. But you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mental Purpose Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Lobos. And you know what? Today is a really fun interview. My guest is Jeremy Brown. Obviously, you know how this goes. Before I tell you all about Jeremy, let me make sure we get to the business side. It's a free business side. The Mental Purpose community, you got to join it. We are growing like crazy. We have free coaching in there. We have incredible resources. We're an ecosystem for like-minded individuals and men who are looking to be on purpose, to take their life to a new level, elevate, evolve, be educated, just like empowered. Just join it. It's free. You got nothing to lose, literally nothing to lose. So let me get to this quick because this interview is long. Jeremy Brown, he is a professional storyteller and he helps people write books on their story. Here's why this is different today. And you are going to want to listen to this entire thing because it is jam-packed. I didn't know how this interview was going to go. I have ideas on how interviews are going to go. I have some things that I might want to talk about and some directions I may want to take it. I don't really plan them out. I let them happen naturally. This thing started before we started recording. We like connected instantly and I started asking him questions and I said, we got to start recording. And man, we got into some massive depth about the power of the story. Not only that, we got into the power of finding your authentic self. One of our pillars in the mental purpose community, revealing the most authentic self and living the most fulfilling and regret-free life possible. And so we talk about everybody has a life story. We talk about the impacts of a story, of sharing. We talk about how you can change people's lives by sharing your story. What you need to do to be able to share your story, structures and formats to be able to share. Why he started the company. We talk about failures. We talk about struggling to find your purpose and finding your purpose. We talk about his burn process, the diamond, steel, and gold, the beginnings, the urgency, the refinement, and the newness. That's the end in the burn process. I thought this was one of the most fun interviews I have done to date. And I have fun with almost every interview. Not that I don't have fun. There's different levels of fun. Some are obviously a little more serious than like something like this. We had a blast. You guys are going to have a blast. You're going to feel our energy the entire time. It's really positive. It's very upbeat. We're really in sync with each other. This was just such a great interview, and I can't wait to talk to Jeremy again, have him back on the podcast. Maybe we'll have him as a guest in the Mental Purpose community or at one of our frontrunner events to teach something to this audience about getting their story out. Because look, here's the thing. You think you're alone until you know somebody else shares the same shit. And you think that you're the only one that has that story until you hear someone else share it. Right? Nobody's alone out there. No one has a unique situation. We all have stuff that's happened to us, and we all have a way that we processed it. We all have stories and made up stuff around the stuff that happens to us. We call that evidence versus emotion in our world. There's nothing truly more powerful, in my opinion, than sharing your story with another human being, to connect with them on a deep level and for them to understand that they are not alone. And not only are they not alone, they've got a brother here that can help walk them through something, because maybe the mountain that you climbed is a mountain that this person now needs to climb. And so you want to talk about legacy? That's the other thing we talk about, by the way. You want to talk about legacy? When you are somebody that can share a story and then help somebody mentally and emotionally process through how that's going to happen and how they're going to see that mountain climb and what it looks like at the top or on the other side, you have now left a legacy. You have now had a purpose in life. You now have left the world different and more positive, more impacted positively than when you got here. That's true power. That's true influence. That is legacy, people. So let's talk about all that stuff in the Jeremy Brown interview. Hope you enjoy. All right, Jeremy, the power of the story, or the power of your story, is what I named this episode, because in my opinion, when you got pitched to me by your agent or your podcast booker, whoever it was, like, I'm telling you right now, I think one of the most powerful things that you can do, and I know you're going to agree, is you share your story with other people. And one, like in my opinion, they know they're not alone, because most of us, if not all of us, have at one time or many times in our life thought, I'm the only one. That's it. I am so alone right now. No one understands me. When you share your story, when you share with someone what you've been through or what you've gotten from, like, work in the mental and purpose coaching world or our masterminds or our frontrunner events, when you share with somebody what you've been through, where you've come from, what you did to change it, and where you are now, it is inspiring. And so that was the biggest reason why I was like, yes, this is going to be a great topic for people to understand. Not in terms of call Jeremy and get a book written. That's a bonus. It's right. It's more of start sharing your story with people, because if you want to have and leave a legacy that's more important than what you do, the legacy is about who you are, and sharing your story. Like, come on. Yeah, dude, that is probably the number one thing I tell people do, is share what you've experienced. So I want to get your thoughts on that first and foremost.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
And there's some beautiful things. And I think there's a big question that I've been asking, and I don't even know if this is going to come out right, because this is really like in real time. I'm like pondering this because I've interviewed well over 600 people, and not just like an interview. Each interview lasted over 8 hours or longer. Some cases like 30, 40 hours. Wow. And these are people who have excelled in some area of their life. And I got to unpack their life. And so this is where I approach this from. So we know that everybody's life tells a story, right? Everybody's does. And I can learn from stories. I also know there's a way that story works. There's a way to tell a story that works. There's a structure to every story. And it's the same kind of basic structure. And that's what I saw as I was interviewing people, is I was like, there's a cycle in everybody's life, whether it's an atheist in Australia, an entrepreneur in Singapore, or someone right here in South Dakota where I'm at. Our life works in cycles. Story works in cycles, like the earth works in seasons. Yeah. So, like, this is how it relates. And this is my thought, and I'm free flowing with you, just like I rigged up this mic that's in front of me, because I'm asking this question right now to myself and to people like yourself who are thinkers. Leadership, a big part of leadership is self-awareness, right? If I don't have a lot of self-awareness, I can't really lead myself or anybody else. Sure. So how could I know who I am if I don't know my story? Understanding one story, processing that, thinking it through, processing it, laying it on the table in community with other people to look at it, I think is such a fundamental, foundational step in order to step into a place that I call fullness, where one is bringing their full self to the table. All of their experiences, like you've had a lot of them, you've had 20 years of them. That's how you're making everything that you're making, your masterminds, your front runner programs, everything. You can bring your full self to the table for other people. You're walking in anointing. You're walking in fullness of time, fullness of your experiences. And then you don't have to worry about competing with other people, and nobody can compete with you. Just like when I went to your website. I went to your website, I read about the about section, like your story. Yeah. And it helps me connect with you. Everybody has masterminds, everybody's got programs, everybody's got stuff, but not how you do, because nobody's walked what you've walked. That allows you to bring into everything you're doing what you're up to. Now think about this though. If you separated your story from what you're doing, it's easy to compete with. I can make a program. Totally. I can do this. But your story is what makes it completely unique, and it lets me know, as somebody looking at you, this is somebody I want to participate with. I want to engage with this person. Yeah. It's a foundational for spiritual formation, identity formation, business development, so many things we can do if we understand our story, how to share it, and how to wield the power of it.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much the interview right there. So thanks for being on. I'm just kidding.
Let's check out.
I thought that's all I got. That was so well framed. That was so well put. No, dude, you're completely right. And I had this conversation with somebody this morning, and I said, people often ask me, why do you have other coaches on your podcast if you're a coach and that's your business? And I said, because I don't see competition. When I was a real estate agent, I saw competition. When I was with my dad in his business, in the shipping business, I was ruthless against my competition. Like, regardless of what it took, I would take you out. Because I was scared that if you beat me, that meant I'm not worthy. I'm not valuable. I'm unlovable. Whatever, make up whatever shit you want in there. Like, the
right.
uns, that's what I thought I was if I didn't beat you. And then in my real estate business, like I started understanding how to make friends in that by sharing our commonalities, our stories. And I still had a lot of competition. Like, I still had a competitor mindset. When I came to coaching, maybe 6-7 years ago, I had the competitor mindset. I wanted to be better than you. So I built programs and I built structures and, curriculum. And I realized very quickly when I started this podcast that it wasn't about my structures and curriculum. It's about who I am leading you through them. So
That's
therefore,
right.
if it's about who I am leading you through them, to your point, then there is no competition because you can't be me. You cannot be me.
That's right.
Nobody can be me. So I can give my shit out to anybody. You can't do it like I can because you're not me. So I love that point that you're making. And for those people that are listening, like, there's no competition out there if you are authentically you. And that's the work that you got to do, is find who you are in all the external shit.
Yeah, and then, think about this. It allows me, because I was very competitive too. I used to be in my 20s. I hated laying in bed at night and hearing there were cars driving around. I didn't even know what they were doing, but they were up and I wasn't.
Right.
And so that's just ridiculous and immature.
Yeah.
But me knowing my fullness allows me to celebrate and be with people in theirs. Because I don't have to compete with you. Like, I can release myself. I want to be the best. I want to win at everything. But that's not like the driving force, and I'm not coming at it from a place of insecurity. Because I'm in my fullness here, and I talk about fullness in 3 ways. I'm in the fullness of time. I've given myself time. I've had enough reps. I've really honed a gift into a skill. There's fullness of an experience. I've been there, done that, walked the walk. I've worked my way through it. I'm on the other side. I'm looking back. I've processed it enough to offer it to you. And then fullness of the spirit. Like, when I go through something, there's an anointing that takes place, so to speak. Like, something happens at a soul level with us where your words have weight when you talk. Where, like, you can talk to dudes about something and it'll land with them in ways that if I said the same thing, it wouldn't land.
What is the difference there? So those 3 things are pretty important. I know a lot of people that say, well, I can't be that until I get here, and I can't coach people until I have these level of experiences. Is that what you're talking about there? Is that true?
It might be, because you want to be, especially if you're leading other people, you want to lead them from a place of fullness where I've done the whole thing. There's that mountain that I climbed. Even if the mountain's not very big, point to the mountain that you have climbed, even if it's a hill, even if it's a pebble, because then you're not trying to be somebody you're not. Yeah. And you're not, when you sit down with someone, I tell this to everybody I train in sales. Like, when you sit down with people, you want to be so authentic that you're just sitting down in the truth of who you are and what you're trying to deliver for them. Yeah. Then you don't even have to, it doesn't, like you just said before we started this interview, I don't even have a structure. We don't need one. Let's just get into the flow of the conversation. And when you can do that with people, anytime, like, even to the point of this, where we have a part of our business that we just developed, it's like 2 years old. And it's where basically I was like, we've got to figure out how to somewhat franchise our business. And because there's enough of a market where I could hire 100 writers, and I don't necessarily want to hire 100 writers right now. But I love coaching entrepreneurs. So we literally created a program where I was like, I'll put my business in a box and teach it to you so you can go build the business on your own. Yeah. And all we did is said, let's bring people in. Let's just give them everything we got. I got on the call with these people 2 times a week, every week for 2 years and running. Wow. And just poured into them. And like, we help people go full time from writing as a dream to full time. But I gave them everything they needed to do to go win. And here's my whole business. I was like, I'm giving you a business in a box with this thing. But they all wanted to work with us. So it like multiplied our talent pool now. And I did not expect that. But that result would have never happened had I not been secure in, there's a huge market here. I don't have to worry about creating competition. That's what everybody told me. Like, you're just creating competition for yourself. It's like, that can't happen. Like,
Right.
yeah, there'll be more noise out there, but they all turned back and said, hey, we want to work with you guys. Like, you've added this much value. Let's keep going. And so, all going back to this, knowing your story, and I think it has to be done in community with another person who can look into you and go, this thing that you think is normal and everybody does isn't normal. And everybody has that. 400 plus books now I'm into. The very best part of every author, almost everyone we've worked with, and I'd say probably the last 3 years, because it's become part of what we do. We can find things that they don't even know are there that become some of their hallmark stories, vignettes, and content. But you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah.
We've got to do it in community. And people that care sincerely about us, that will sit with us long enough and let you, without judgment, totally free, lay everything on the table and just look at it.
Yeah.
And then you
Open.
can really say, this is what makes me who I am.
That's so interesting you say that. I want to go back to something real quick because I want the audience to catch how powerful this was. I hope you remember this. When you sit down with people in the fullness of who you are, what was the rest of that? Because that was so good, man. I got like chills when you said that.
Well, you're sitting in your truth, and you're bringing, I think, those three things: the fullness of time, fullness of your experiences, fullness of the spirit. And you can be fully present. You can remember when you sat with somebody and they were fully present with you. It wasn't about what they said. It wasn't about what they were doing. Their full presence was there. You become a very powerful person when you can do that. And that's what it is. That's what I'm talking about. But you got to know who you are so you can be secure in that. That if I just have a pen and a paper, if I don't even have a pen and a paper, I can sit down with someone and I can create value with them if I'm in my niche, if I'm in my own fullness, and that's relevant to them. I can create tremendous results with somebody, and we don't need much. And you know what? If they don't get value and they don't like me, I'm okay with that too.
Right, you're at peace with that.
I'm not for everybody, right? So that's totally good too. That's just fine.
So what we're talking about here is the absence of the ego and having to prove something to someone. So when you're sitting down with them, you know, when I teach sales training, or what we call enrollment training, enrolling somebody in the possibility that you can create or that could be created through what you have or what you offer or who you are, I'll say to them, like, people will automatically ask you to sign with you. They'll automatically want to do business with you when you are with them, when you are sharing with them openly, when you're not in your ego trying to prove something or be right or be smart or be the best. So like, there's so much depth here to what you're saying, and I really want to make sure the audience hears this. This isn't surface level words. This is actually from what you're talking about in those three areas: time, experience, and spirit. This is deep stuff. And what you're saying is, don't sit with somebody and trying to prove something. Don't sit with somebody and be in the looking good or looking smart or being better than or being right. Like, if you really want to share a story, just be with them in the fullness of you. That goes way beyond what we're like the title of this episode. It goes way beyond. Like, yeah. I think I might actually have to change this for people listening. That are like, I thought the name was. No, I think I might have to change this. The power of your story actually isn't powerful enough to what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the power of you and your story, right? And the alignment of, like what you're saying. You know, it has to be in community. You have to get your stuff out on paper or on the table and let other people see it. That's not physical only. That's not what you're not talking about writing it out and laying out 115 pages and having everybody kind of look over it and go, oh, that's cool. That's a cool. What you're saying is, like, to understand. And by the way, like, Aaron and I teach this all the time on stage and in our mastermind. This is what legacy is. This is what you're talking about too. Right. It's who you are and how you show up, not just what you do and what you leave behind. It's who you are and how you show up for somebody that leaves a legacy more important than money or what you've done. That's right. Or what you're leaving behind when you die.
That's right. Yeah, and it you know, we talk about this in the book world, but I think it's the same as a human being. Is I can produce an immediate ROI today. Like, we're going to get an ROI, we're going to get a return, but I'm also going to do something that my kids' kids' kids are going to be impacted by. and I can do that all at the same time. And so, and I know you're, if I remember right from your story, you in Landmark. I'm hearing that come through right now with enrollment and everything, and it's so good and it's so true, and it makes things a lot easier than just kind of simple. So I'll tell you where, like, we did not come to this as like a beautiful realization. It happened because my business was failing, because we were getting paid to publish a book once and we were writing books twice. And that was not good. But here's what it is. Like, my wife and I have been doing the same thing for 15 years. I'm 10 years into throwing. I sold my first publishing company, 10 years ago, and I started throwing up right after. We're in our 10th year right now, which I never would have thought would have happened. I never was even thinking in those terms. But something was happening. We realized, so we sit down with people and we interview them all day. And that's how the book gets done. The author talks, the writer writes, we're doing our thing, right? It happens so often that we knew between the hours of 1 and 3 in the afternoon, we called it in the beginning, the turning of the tides, a breakthrough would happen and all kinds of new things would start coming from this author.
Yeah.
So what we had was the author would walk in that day with a clarity level 6 in terms of what they wanted their book to be and their life. They would walk away that day with like a clarity level 9 or a 10. Which was beautiful to watch unfold. It was extraordinary. It's why we do what we do. Books are great. They just make an artifact that'll last generations. That's why I like books. But the process changes somebody. And we had to do this because we had to go. So what would happen is they'd have this big breakthrough, but the writer would have all this. So the author would be at a clarity level 10. The writer, though, would have clarity level 6 content. So they'd go write the book, get it all done, and the author would then go, actually, I think my book's about something totally different now.
Oh, wow.
Like, I had people, Inc. 5,000 founding CEOs come back and go, after this, I rebranded my whole business. And they go, keep the money for the book. We don't need to do it anymore. And I said, what the hell is happening here?
Wow.
And so we had to think. So I got about, 6, 7 people, writers, editors, videographer, architectural designers in a room for 2 days. And we reverse engineered what was happening. And that's how we came up with this process to then intentionally do it. So it changed our business instead of going right into like, yeah, we can get a book done. Boom, let's do it. And I could do it fast. I've gotten a book done over a weekend, from idea to printing and everything. Started on a Friday, got it on a Tuesday. Wow. Fast, transactional, not deep, just transaction. But this made us go, we're going to sit with an author for an entire day. We're going to help them process their entire life story. Then we're going to outline their book. They're going to walk away with that day with a full outline. And then we're going to start publishing later. We're going to start writing later. We got to give them this space first because it's going to change everything they think about their book, about their life, about whatever. And that's what people would start. And I think it's becoming like a tangible, measurable way. I can say, if you are struggling with your purpose in life, in one day you can go from struggling to clarity and knowing who you are in a freaking day. And that sounds like, I don't even like that language because there's too much of, and I'm in the world, so I see it all the time. Like, I'm in this world, but it's like the 7 keys to finding your purpose. And then they publish that one, the 8th key to finding your purpose and meaning in life. The keys before the keys. It's like, oh, come on. But it really it changed our business so much. If we wouldn't have discovered this and built around it and been open to changing our whole process and our whole business, it's at least $1 million entity right now. We just solidified it like 4 years ago. Whole different part of our business, and it would have ruined our business because we're like, people are changing. I love this. This is why we do this, but we can't do, the math does not work to get paid for something once and then do it twice. That's not good business. So that's where this came from that I'm talking to you about, is we had to say, what is happening? Because we could predict when it was going to happen even. And it was like you could literally see light bulbs come on in people. It's extraordinary to witness. And that's how we just built a business around that.
That's so cool.
So that's where this came from. It was a big problem.
I mean, isn't every business's evolution based on a problem and a solution and then a problem and solution? And do you find it fascinating? Like, I look at our coaching business, like last night I was having a rough time, let's say. Self-induced bullshit mindset, emotional reaction stuff. Every entrepreneur goes through it. Even though I'm a coach, it doesn't mean I'm not human and I don't have the human stuff. And so
Absolutely.
I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, I know this thing could be bigger. I know we could help more guys. Like, I know we should be helping more people. And she's like, well, let's look at the evidence. Look where you were last year at this time. You were still showing houses when you were coming home. You were living in California without us. You were coming home every 3 weeks to show houses. You're coaching on this. Still coaching, like not on the side. That was like another business we had.
Wow.
Now today, this is what Men on Purpose looks like. This is what the podcast looks like. This is what your future in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year looks like. Like, let's make those comparisons. Not that it's a healthy thing to compare. Yet when it comes to evidence over
That's
your
right.
mindset that you have in that moment, you need to compare. Like, okay, look at myself 3 months ago. And I think I look at the evolution of these companies and I go, man, how did I not know that? How did I not see that shit before? That was just so simple. How was I not open and aware to that? Isn't that every company? Every company has to go through that type of evolution to figure out who they really are, because at the end of the day, most people start businesses because they want more money, or they want to get out of their other business, or they hate their job and they start this side hustle. And then the initial evolution of the business, or the foundation of the business, is for something else, or to get you from here to here, or to pay you more
That's right.
here, or to avoid this. Whereas then the business evolves to, oh, that's the real purpose of this business. Okay, I'm clear. That's what you're talking about. Do you get frustrated when you go, fuck, we just recorded this whole book and it literally can be something completely different? Now we have to go back. Do you get frustrated with that?
Well, it doesn't happen anymore, but it did all the time.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And yeah, it did. And that was, I'm going back 5-6 years ago, but we were so committed. And I think this is a big piece. And when we're talking about entrepreneurship, finding purpose, I truly believe, like, God doesn't call me to do something as much as he calls me to someone. So he calls me to a people, and according to what the people need determines then what I do. And if we are truly care about the people, like, I only work with authors. Mean this bottom of my heart. Doesn't mean I don't like people. I only work with authors. I go, I'm excited about this person. Like, if I can sincerely get excited about what they're doing, if I think they have sincere intentions, it goes right into our convictions and values we have posted up all over our business. And there's such a ripple effect to that. Then I'm excited every day. Like, there's a bunch of challenges. There's a bunch of crap. Like, we got the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, same thing.
Yeah.
But I want to do it for the people. And that has rippled through our business. Like, it's how we get great talent, because they know I'm going to be fired up. I'm going to enroll them in the project. They're going to be enrolled in the project. We're having a good time. We care about the authors. We go the extra mile, and all the ripple effect of that. So I think if people just know, like you're talking about here, seek who your people are. Who is going to be your people? And for you, it's these dudes that you're coaching. And it was worth going through time where you and your wife had this shared agreement. I'm living over here, and every 3 weeks I'm coming back. I'm doing I'm showing homes. I'm doing what I got to do to make it happen.
Yeah.
You two are both bought into that for the people that you're now serving today.
Yeah, it's a means to an end. But it's always like, we have this exercise in our Men on Purpose curriculum that we call the first battleground, second climb. The first battleground is what the means to an end is that you're into right now. Like, for me, it was real estate sales. I didn't love it. I loved the money. I loved some of the people, very little, but some of the people in that, and like client wise. And there was the means to an end to get me to this coaching business that I love, that I feel fulfilled and passionate about. And listen, it's still a business too. There's frustrations in this that I go through all the time, building and scaling this business, because it's like, I'm not serving enough. I'm not doing enough for these guys. I need to give them more. I need to serve more. And that's not greed. That's like real purpose. That's real mission. And I feel like we have to go through these cycles. First battleground, second climb. Real estate business, first battleground, second climb, coaching. First battleground, one-on-one coaching at a very low level to second climb, this higher level coaching. Higher level coaching, first battleground, to group coaching. Group coaching at a low level to group coaching at a high level, and build the community. Like, it always cycles like that. It always cycles like that. And I think that, like, you tell me what you think. The story that you have, actually, I have an interesting question I just thought about. Do you ever catch?
Let's hear it.
Do you ever catch somebody who has been telling themselves? I'm talking like deep psychology here. Do you ever catch somebody? Not catch them, but like make them aware of. Like, do you ever hear somebody who's been telling themselves this story for so long, and meanwhile, like, it's actually not true, and it's not meant to like be a lie or a falsification. It was to protect themselves, like something they told themselves about their parents or about their spouse that actually isn't based in reality. It's based in their perception of reality. And when you guys lay it out on paper, they're like, oh my God. Or like, let's say a spouse sees it and they go, that never happened. But you are 100% convinced that it did. Do you ever have that happen?
You know, I've a lot of clarity moments, but I think almost everybody to a degree is living through some kind of lie.
Yeah, or lens.
And I don't mean a lie like
a lens.
It might be deceit. You know, we see a lot of deceit in the world right now, but it might be like a lie they told themselves, that somebody told them, a vow they made, whatever that is that became true. And I think we all have that to a degree about our own potential. You know, I do it to myself all the time, and I'm really challenging myself of how can I create? How can I make time expand more? Or how can we, do X, Y, and Z, new goals that we're setting that I'm like, this wouldn't even have been a thing a year ago.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But I do. I mean, I remember there was a dude, an atheist in Australia, and, we're a Christian company, but we don't have like crosses hanging up and stuff like that. I don't feel like I need to go, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Jeremy, I'm a Christian. If I'm doing that, It's really not even authentic.
Not authentic, yeah.
My faith is a weapon. It's a tool I use. It works for me in my life. It generates results for me.
Sure.
So he was like, hey, can you work with me? I'm not with the God thing. I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. We have all kinds of clients,
right,
everywhere around the world, and every different kind of, we've heard it all almost. But he saw his whole life laid out in front of him in cycles and stages, and he was like, it's almost like somebody planned all this. And that's really when we see our story kind of laid out, it makes us kind of question some of those bigger questions.
Sure.
It looks at you right in the face. How did all of this line up like this?
Did an atheist start to open up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And I said, that's a great question.
Right.
And, we didn't go too deeper beyond that, but I knew something happened in him.
Yeah.
And he was a good thinking man, and he didn't stop thinking about that.
Sure.
And I don't know what came of it. Sometimes I see it. Sometimes they have a God moment right in front of me and all those kind of things. But that happens frequently. We see people get healed. Physical healings happen right then and there.
That's so cool.
Incredible things happen. And so seeing healings we see that regularly. But when it's just incredible about it makes me wonder this. So I'll say it this way too. It just makes me go, what else is there that we just don't know, or that's hidden from us right now?
Yeah.
There's so much more
that
we are capable of, that we are about this world, about ourselves. And I'm not going down the rabbit hole on this, but there's just so much we have to learn.
Sure. What about, do you ever have people who share their story and they realize like, oh my God, there's so much more that's possible. Like there's so much more I could be doing here. When they see their life laid out and they're like, oh my God, I've been playing small, or I've been playing by fear. Okay. Yeah. What do they do?
Every time. Well, and that's where we get to really challenge them, and we can say what you thought. Our big thing is like, it's not about the book. You think it's about the book, but it's about something way bigger.
Yeah, for sure.
And when we really step into this fullness, it's way bigger than we thought. Somebody was here. She flew from sunny San Diego into minus 1 degree weather here in South Dakota to work on her stuff, and we ended up talking about her. She's a wildly talented young woman, and we ended up talking about her vision was about yay big, and it ended up being this big, and it wasn't because of any kind of fancy process we had. She processed her story and said, holy crap, I've been through a freaking lot. If I can get through that, what does that then mean about me?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what, that's the game changer, because it's real things. I didn't read about it in a book.
Right.
I didn't get it from a seminar. Those are all good things, but I see this in my life, and if I can make it through this, what does that mean then about my future and what I'm capable of?
What's interesting is you go through a seminar, right? And you you go through a seminar and you have this almost this false sense that something's possible because the guy on stage and the energy in the crowd, the frequency is giving you motivation. Really what they're saying up on there is rewrite your story. What's your next chapter look like? You're in charge. And for the people that leave there, 95% of them, and go, yeah, I don't know about that. The society, the government, like there's so many other things at play here. And that's like really the blame culture. And really the majority of this country and the world of like this blame mentality and this against this and this label on this makes me a certain type of... I had this conversation today, like somebody this weekend said to me, yeah, well, I don't do that. I'm a Republican. And I go, well, what the hell does that mean? And he goes, well, you know exactly what it means. And I said, why? Because I'm white and 5'11". I know I'm supposed to be a Republican or know what that means. And he goes, I mean, sort of. And I said, do you know how dumb you sound? And it's just like, I realize how small-minded and narrow thinking people are, even in powerful positions. And like, this guy was in a powerful position. And I don't care that I'm sharing this story. Like, I thought it was like a really shitty experience that I had. That I was just supposed to be pigeonholed into this thing, and this entity, right, is supposed to be pigeonholed. Like everybody's supposed to be pigeonholed and has this thought process like a cult. And I thought it was crazy. But like it just didn't work for me. And some of the other guys around were like, you know, that actually is a pretty good point. Like, what does that even mean? Am I supposed to just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I had a thought process outside of this tunnel vision of this thing that you say has a representation of these certain pieces. It was so limited. I allow myself to get annoyed. But the fact of the matter is, when people say like, man, I went to this amazing like Tony Robbins event or a landmark event, and I go, cool, how's your story change? How's your life change? Your chapter just went like this. It's a blank page. You have the power. And they go, yeah, I'm processing that. And they go, on paper? And they go, no, in my head. And I go, cool, process it on paper, because now you're going to see what the conscious and unconscious are battling inside. So my question to you is, how does someone start? Like, let's say they just went to an event this past weekend. Like these episodes drop on a Monday. They just went to an event, and now they're like, okay, I'm motivated, and the rubber band still has some elasticity to it. And before it snaps back, which it'll inevitably do, unless you go to Landmark, which I think the rubber band snaps back a lot slower than like a UPW, which I've been to a lot of. How does someone catch and keep that thing stretched by getting their story, even just like some sentence fragments or some structure out on paper? Like, how do they do that? What's the structure for that? Is there something specific that you would recommend?
Well, I mean, I think if it's coming in the context of I'm just coming from an event and the rubber band is like this, I think, you know, from my opinion, I've been transformation training. I've been through Landmark. I've been through other transformation. It's awesome. Yeah. Changed my life. I mean, even a year ago, maybe not even a year. No, it was a full year ago, about a year and a half. I went through it, changed the game for me. But I think it's about not going back in the drift. So like however you feel like your story is changing, keep doing the processing on that, but then just like keep acting it out. Sure. I think that's the beauty of those kind of training programs in that community, is they put you in this environment that is not really, you don't feel like it's real life. And then you do things that you never would have done otherwise or on your own ever, but it stretches you out so much. But if you're thinking of like our burn process, we can talk through that. But if you're looking at here's the story, I'm processing everything. How do I know what to use in my story? What's usable? What's relevant? You know, we have this concept in this process called the burn process, and here's the concept of it. If I throw a bunch of materials into a fire, only the things of lasting value withstand the flames. I'm going to be left with diamonds, gold, and steel, for example. Yeah. So you want to do that with your story, your life, is you want to throw it into this fire, so to speak, so that you can find the things of lasting value. The diamonds that display beauty through testimony, the steel that gives strength, and the gold that is valuable to other people that you have that I will pay for. That's value. And that burn process, there's a cycle to it. It works in a cycle, and it's an acronym. And the B in burn is for beginning. So you want to look, when you're just starting to process your story, look for beginnings. Your beginnings matter. The beginning of an experience ripples through that entire experience in the same way that a first impression ripples through a relationship. It's hard to shake. How, when you had a new thing happen in your life, how did it begin and when did it begin? And we have beginnings in two ways. The first one is a loss, and the other one is a leap. The loss is, this thing happened to me. I didn't ask for it, want it, earn it, or deserve it. And here it is to visit upon me. I have to deal with this thing, and it's setting myself up on a new cycle, a new path. It's a loss. Didn't want it. Then there's a leap. And a leap is where I say, there's a mountain, I'm going to climb it. And I intentionally give myself a new path in life, a new cycle. Okay? So we have this new beginning, and then we go into the U. The U in burn is urgency. Now that this beginning has happened, I've got to do something. And I either choose to, like I choose to out of volition to act, or I act out of necessity. I don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay here type of a moment. And those moments require courage. And we take action. And when we take action, we move into the biggest part of the burn cycle, which is the R, which is refinement. And refinement happens in three ways. The first way is street lessons. Lessons you learn in the streets. Like you know things, Ian, that no other person knows. No man or woman has taught you. You learned about it in the streets. King Solomon, the richest man to ever live, said, wisdom is in the streets at the highest points of the city, shouting to the simple-minded, inviting them to this banquet that he likened to wisdom. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you got stuff, and the best stuff you probably don't see because we can't see the picture when we're in the frame. Then there's street skills, skill sets we develop on the path. You just learn how to do stuff. And because you learned in life experience, you know how to do things differently than other people. And then there's divine appointments, the right person at the right time with the right word. And as I look back, I say, had I not run into that person, I don't quite know what I would have done. And they deposited something in you. Then there's divine appointments that don't really look like divine appointments. There's people who come and take from you. They use you. They take. And if you've been used, it tells you you're usable. Okay, but they don't look like divine appointments, but what was meant for harm can be turned to good, and you can find somebody's glory by looking at where they have been shamed. What was meant for glory has been put to shame. That's a big example because the world will attack some of your most precious gifts. Then we have the N in burn, which is newness, and that is the fullness I've been talking about with you. That's how we identify somebody's newness, how you can do it on your own if you're listening to this. But it starts with, like, I would say this, look at your beginnings, and then I'd call someone like yourself and say, what do I do with this? Here's who I am. Here's some of this stuff. Plug into everybody needs to have a guide. Like coaches, guides are divine appointments. And that's where they can walk you through a cycle to bring you to an ending point. That newness is the closure and the finality of the experience. Doesn't always go the way we wanted it to or end the way we wanted it to, but there's closure to it. There's a cycle. Okay? And our life works in cycles like the earth works in seasons. Our projects work in cycles. Our day works in cycles. Like we've really expanded this out because it's so relevant. But it only happened, man. I think this is the other thing. It only happened because I just sat with people that they were my customers, but I freaking love to see them win. It pulls something out of me more than just I'm doing it. It's for the dollars. All that's there. I love making money. I love seeing people make money. I don't apologize for it. But I sat with them long enough to sit in the mess and go, let's figure this freaking thing out because something's happening here. But if we went to have that passion for people, and that's why I think people focus on your divine appointments in your life. Who has showed up? Even when you say, Ian, like I bet it maybe started this way. People show up in your life that are divine appointments that you go, I don't know why, but I love this person. I want to help them. They're inconvenient. They're expensive. Yeah. I don't even know if they're grateful, but I want to help them. Right. It's like I've been given a love to give to them. That's a big sign of calling and where you can tap into so much into yourself by focusing on serving those people.
And is that also people that show up like I had a business partner in 2019 who was just a total scumbag, stole a shit ton of money. My fault for
one of those
being so insecure or non-confident to partner with a person like that. So I can't blame him totally. He's a scumbag just because of the decisions he makes, and he's just not thinking about anybody but himself, and that's okay. It is what it is. There's plenty of people like that. However, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you with the knowledge that I have and the experiences I have if he didn't do that stuff, right? So at that moment, like, if I were writing a story with you, I would say I wouldn't be the same guy.
That's right.
that stuff happened for me, not to me. And that was a big decision
right.
that I had at that moment. And a part of my story is not what happened, it's the decisions I made after it happened, saying, this happened for me, let's figure out why, and let's move forward this way versus
That's
this
good.
happened to me and I'm a victim. So
That's right.
is that legit in that category, divine appointments?
Yeah, because then you can just go in a loop.
Sure.
Like our cycles go outward. They're not full circles. They go outward.
Got it.
And that you can stay in a loop. If you had imagine if it would have went on for another couple years. I was in the same situation, and I had to first go, you're super smart. I think this is great for people thinking about this. I did this 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I had to first go, how did I let this happen to me?
Oh,
and
I had that.
Same thing. Yeah, and it's super smart. That's how you maximize these experiences that you get.
Sure.
And I think all the dudes in here, we can't go blame, point the fingers, this and that. It might be true because losses, I'll say this, all spiritual formation usually begins with betrayal. And I define betrayal as the loss of relationship with a person or a thing. This person was here and now they're not.
Say that again.
Or
I'm
I
gonna
had
write that
this
down.
and now.
All spiritual.
Yeah. Almost all spiritual transformation begins with betrayal. And this is, I define in this sense, the betrayal as the loss of relationship with a person or a thing. So
Can that be
he or
you
she
too?
was here. And,
Can that be betrayal of yourself?
Pardon me?
Can that be your own betrayal of yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your integrity?
Certainly could be,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
yes, I think that's a great point. It certainly could be. And that betrayal kicks off the transformation. And so, like, this author was here. Her name's Rebecca Mann. She really helped me because when we're talking about forgiveness, because then you got to forgive the other person. And that's hard to do. And she was talking about this, and she said, I had to come to a point where I said, this person over here that did this to me, they're not 100% bad.
Right.
They're not 100% bad. There's some good in them. They didn't show it to me.
Sure.
It's there.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to think about. They're not 100%. I thought that's just great awareness.
Yeah.
And a wonderful way to think about other people, especially if we have not so pleasant experiences with them.
I have this conversation a lot when people ask me about that experience, and I say it's all based on context, right? If you want to talk landmark, it's all based on lens and how you view it and what lens you view it from. Because him stealing that money and using it to pay for plastic surgery for his wife and a tummy tuck for himself, yeah, I said that, and for work on his truck and like some other extracurricular things, I won't mention that. I saw it all on the bank statements, like some stupid shit in there. That context makes it, makes me or like the person it's done to, or person on the other side, that context makes it wrong, or makes the person on the other side want to make that person wrong. Yet, if you change it to the context of he stole $680,000 and gave it to orphan children to feed the hungry, to clothe the homeless, and is it at all wrong? Well, then you go, oh, well, you know what? There's a little bit of wrong in there because it was stealing. But look what he did for, he helped so many people. And it's like, well, if you take right or wrong out, right, and you put serving and non-serving, it's still imbalanced. Yet the person that it served best was actually me in the first scenario. And the person that served best in the second scenario was me and those kids. It's weird to think about that. If you think about not being wrong, not making somebody wrong, but using it as a serving and non-serving, thought process, mindset.
It's good.
That shit is
like
golden. So like in my book,
Yeah.
when you help me write my book, we're going to listen back to this and we're going to say, in this context, I could have made him wrong. In your context, when somebody did something to you or whatever, you could have made them wrong. However, it served me best because I'm the guy that's winning today because of that experience. Now, if he would have stolen the money and given it to the homeless kids, I still would have won because I would have lost that money. However, I would have gained the experience nonetheless. And those kids won. Like, that's a really cool way to think about things. And that's your job. It's on you. It's your choice to not place blame, to not make people wrong. In my opinion, trying to make people wrong is taking up mind share that doesn't need to be taken up. It's wasting brain power as to figuring out a solution going forward. Would you agree with that?
It doesn't add any value.
No.
It's not going to do anything.
No.
It'll keep you in loops. You'll be running in a circle.
Yeah, totally. So one more question about dude, that formula that's freaking awesome, by the way. I love the structure of that burn. In the newness, can you just get a little bit more detail in there? So I have closure in the finality of the experience. Can you go into more depth there?
Yeah, so you had something happened and you had a beginning. You, in urgency, you processed the idea. And so you're thinking through, you're making decisions, you're processing it. This is where all consumers of books, of things, clients, they're deciding they need you. The refinement, you went through the process, you did the things, you did the stuff. And then the newness is the closure of it all. It comes to some kind of conclusion and finality. It isn't always the finality that we wanted. Like someone told me once, I lost my job the other day. I guess I now have a new beginning. Well, you had newness. You got fired. And that was the finality of that cycle of your life. And you get to process that to learn. Don't look at it like, boom, a new beginning, because there's time to process the newness of, even when you get a new result, you still have to process that and experience that experience of what does this mean and what do I want to take from it?
Yeah.
So you look at then, and that's where the fullness comes in. The fullness of time. You've walked the walk. It's all been there. It wasn't just sometimes. The thing that messes up this whole thing is revelation or transformation, right? It just goes boom. You go all the way through it all at once. It's like you didn't even need to go through the walk. And that's, I think, a divine miracle. I think it's miraculous. I think it's a gift from God, wisdom bestowed upon us that we didn't even earn or deserve. It was just a gift.
Sure.
That messes this whole thing up. But there's the time of it all and healing. Understanding it has to have some time usually, and according to the severity of the beginning and the cycle we went through determines the amount of time I need to process that to really let it soak in.
Interesting.
So then there's the fullness of the experience. What I want to be, I know when I'm in newness because I've walked the walk, I've been there, done that, I'm through it, I'm on the other side of that experience, I'm looking back at it, it's separate from me now, I'm not in it anymore, and I've processed it enough to where I can make meaning from it and help you make meaning from it that's relative to your life and relevant to you. Okay, so there's the experience. Now, look at all that I'm bringing to the table. I talked to you about the street skills, the skills we acquire and develop, and they're always hidden from us usually. We have tremendous skills. Now, think about this. If you and I are thrown into the jungle, we're going to either die or we're going to become survival experts.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm no handyman, but if me and you are in the jungle and I see a lion 100 meters that way, I'm going to have a spear made in like 2 minutes. Okay? And if you were to ask me in the moment, Ian, like, hey, Jeremy, how did you make that spear? I'd be like, dude, I don't know. I'm trying to survive. There's a lion coming. And then, we try to outrun each other. Yeah. But let's say we're 6 months removed from the jungle. We're sitting here having this conversation. You said, hey, Jeremy, remember you made that knife back here, that spear. You remember that? Oh, yeah, I do. How did you do that? And if you help me think through how I did that, we could create a one-of-a-kind custom spear. We could help other people make spears. We could leave this, hey, if you ever find yourself in the jungle, here's the spear to make, here's how to do it.
Right.
We could make a manufacturing process to make 1,000 of those things a day, and they would sell better than any other spear because no other spear has a story of, I survived a lion, I killed it with this spear, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
So clear. Yes. It's so clear.
And that is the process, I think, that comes out of looking at my life, seeing these cycles, and having the newness there that goes, here is a freaking result that I created, and a community came together around me. It never happens on our own. The great ones never happen alone. And then I get to do this. The diamonds, the gold, the steel, look at them, burn it, sit them right in front of you, and just because you got a bunch of gold from an experience doesn't mean you need to carry it with you. The gold does not rot, it does not mold, it will not go away. You secure it, you put it on a shelf, you lock the door, and when you need it or when you want to, you go back and you get it. And you use it then. That's a business model, one of your ideas, Ian, where you go, that freaking thing is a home run, but it's not right now. I'm going to put it on the shelf, and when I need it, I'll go get it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All kinds of ways. So And that's where you go into the book world. It's your next best book. It's not about publishing a book or the 10, your next best book. What's the very next one, the most relevant one right now that is pinpointed, going to help somebody reach their goals? Or what's their next, how are they going to wield their story in the context they're currently in? Whether they're in a nonprofit raising money, whether they're an executive, whether they're somebody trying to be a better dad, a better husband, how can I take all that I've gotten from my experience in life and bring it to the table?
So go through this is fascinating, honestly. Go through the diamonds again. What was the diamond one?
So the diamonds display beauty through testimony. So that's where I'm really seeing, how do I share my story? What kind of testimony do I have? I think everybody's got a testimony to a degree. And I get to say, dude, people care about your testimony or about your personal narrative. It's a difference maker. And there's testimony in that. Like, healing creates more healing. When I can tell somebody came in here, they hurt their knee, couldn't even do a squat, prayed over them, told them to squat, bam, done. Knee is totally healed. Now that stimulates their faith and said, well, what can we pray for about you? What do you got going on? What's going on? Like, you know what I'm saying? Healing creates healing. Those results create other kind of results like that.
Got it.
So testimony matters. And you can convince.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, what about the steel one? But finish that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think testimony convicts people and creates movement in ways that like facts and stuff doesn't.
Got it. So in the landmark world, since you know it, this is what you would call the background of relatedness when it comes to enrollment.
Yeah, I went through landmark like forever ago, but I remember like, okay, I know a little bit of it. And I was very unaware when I went through it. I don't remember much.
You should do it again.
I was one of those guys walking. Yeah, I should. I was one of those guys walking around going, I feel incredible and I don't even know what happened in this training.
Some weight lifted from you. And then how about the steel?
Yeah, so the steel is what gives strength. And as what we say, what gives strength is you can give somebody a process to follow. We get just talked to Jim Oliver, author today. He goes, people get confidence from using systems that have already worked for other people. Steel gives strength. It gives somebody a sturdy thing to build with, to stand on, to do something with and create something. So steel are those things where, like I told you about the spear. You did something, you built something that you didn't even know you were doing.
Yeah.
And it's only upon reflection you find it. So there's steel that gives strength, and then there's gold that is value. Like, what do I have internally, externally, that could be valuable, that could be packaged up as a value package that's just sitting here in front of me that I didn't really realize? And someone like yourself could look at somebody's life and go, hey, put this and this and this together, and you got a whole package to start a whole business over here, and it's with something they do naturally. Right? You do that all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Dude, the way that you wrap this has never like made me want to write my story out or like tell my story I'm processing all this. I'm like, wow, I'm actually excited to tell my story. Even though I tell my story a lot. I mean, I have this forum, I have the mental purpose community, and I have other things, coaching and events and stuff that we do for other companies. I just, now what I'm hearing here is a totally new format and structure to tell my story that will actually impact people at an even higher level. Because I've been pretty intentional with how I share my stories, not protective, intentional. Not like I hold shit back because I'm afraid of you finding out that I'm vulnerable or I'm emotional. I don't care about that. I've been intentional with how I share so that it doesn't look like me just sharing for nothing. It's like I'm sharing because I want you to understand that I've been through some shit too. Maybe somewhat like you have. We're on common ground there. And I also got through like this. My steel. I put together this structure and system to help myself through it. And if you're open to it, I'd be happy to share that with you too. That's how I'm intentional with it. So
beautiful.
Last thing. Like, as I think about all the positive here, I think about, are there negative implications to sharing your story, to telling the truth, and to just revealing everything so you get it off your chest. However, somebody might get hurt. You might reveal something that people take as a different way than you intended it.
Great question.
So what's the negative implication of sharing your story?
Great question. So we run into this all the time. Like there's some stuff that happened to me and there's some people that are still alive that are negative influences in this story. What should I do? So we have convictions in our company. Values tell you what's important. Convictions tell you what you'd sacrifice for. What we always do, our first two convictions are truth and honor. I want to say true things. I want to say the truth, only the truth, the whole truth, and in a way that honors everybody involved. And if I can't do those two things at the same time, I just don't say it. So, but what happens what are the negative implications of sharing your story? There's going to be people that come and steal.
Sure.
They're going to see the diamonds, the gold, and the steel, and they're going to want it, and they're going to take it, and they're going to do some stuff to you. It comes down to also discernment of people who, if my lake is 100 feet deep, what's the lung capacity of the other person, or what's my lung capacity to take them deep with me? Huh. Am I going to go 10 feet, 50, 100? Am I going to skip a rock across the surface and call it a day? So we get to be discerning with who we really share these valuable pieces of our life with, and to what degree. You don't have to go all the way every time. Like, I'm authentic, and when I go to grab my coffee and she goes, "Oh, Jeremy, how you doing today?" I don't go, "Well, stub my toe on the bed," and that kind of kick things and like just unravel my life. I'm pretty phenomenal. That's what I say all the time, and it's just like it's not relevant. So I want to use the gifts, these diamonds, gold, and steel, in a way that is relevant and appropriate for the situation. So it's like relevant authenticity, and just expect it. Like Jim Rohn's my boy. Like bless his soul. He an incredible teacher, and I love a lot of the things he said. But he always say that's just the way it is. He said when you plant a garden, the rabbits are going to show up. It's just the way it is. It's all right. And, like you say, there's people who will serve and who won't serve, or however you want to frame it up. It's just going to happen. It's okay. Like when you create a great book, when you create something of incredible value, all this kind of stuff, somebody's going to steal it. Somebody in Australia you're going to go on eBay of Australia and go, my book's being sold for $5 more over in Australia, and I don't know how they got it. It's going to happen. And so that's what you get to do as a creator is when you do put yourself out there, there are going to be people who come after you. There's going to be people who try to steal, who use you, and it just lets you know that you're usable. And a thief only goes after perceived value. So you know you got something valuable when those kind of folks show up or those circumstances.
Yeah, I love that, man. I do have like 50 questions that have come up in my mind for you. Last one. So how do you see through somebody's, like their pain or their ego wanting to hurt somebody, or get a story out because of malice, like malicious intention? Are you able to see that? And how do you discern that? Because you could have somebody that's really upset with their father for not being around, or their mother for not protecting them from getting beat up by their dad, or whatever it might be. And they're telling a story to not tell the story, but to hurt that person if they read it. That's their intentionality, not to teach other people. How do you ferret that out, or smoke that out?
Well, I mean, it comes down with I tell them the truth in a way that's honoring to them.
Okay.
And so these cycles, when we're in the midst of one of these cycles, we shouldn't be writing a book about it. You want to write a book from fullness and from newness. Now, it doesn't mean if you want to write a book about how to become a better man, we're continuously on that until the day we die. So you don't have to be totally in the perfection of the thing. There's certain cycles. We're always in cycles, going into new ones, finishing up other ones in every area of our life. And this also helps me problem solve in my day-to-day life. Well, we're not going to go there now because I know we're wrapping this thing up. But I just tell them that. And I don't do those kind of books. One of our other convictions with truth is experience-based content only. If they can't point at the mountain that they want to write the book about that they have climbed, I just don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't say, hey, I'm not going to, I just refer them onward. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to say true things without being honorable to everybody ever. Mm-hmm. And that helps me feel good about the projects too. So again, it goes right back to our convictions we have as a company of this is how we're going to work. This is who we are going to be in every engagement we're in. So it does. But I would say this, you can still share your story because as you share your story, it should be privately shared with people because it processes it all out. So you might start with an unforgiveness thing, malice intent, envy, whatever it is.
And
if you don't, and you can work through it. My son, his biological mother was killed, and horrible thing. And I remember him saying to me, Dad, how am I going to make it through this? And I just said, don't stop talking to us about it.
Yeah.
You can't stop talking about it. So still share your story and those kind of things, but discern that of like, all right, this is not, I don't have good intentions here or whatever it is. I'm going to share it over here with a pastor, with a mentor, with a therapist, a professional to work through it. And that is part of the refinement process that brings something into newness. That's probably part of the story. But you don't want to publish a story when you're in the midst of it.
No. So like we have something in our world when we're coaching people, group coaching, doing corporate coaching, one of our events, mastermind, whatever, we always say, do not come to us with your wounds bleeding out. You are in charge to bandage that wound and come share the bandage or the scar with us. Do not, right. You might not be able to get from bandage to scar on your own. You might need help. Yet your responsibility is do not come open wound and bleed all over this group, because that's you in pure emotional reaction, and nobody's benefiting from that because you're just going to trigger everybody else's emotional shit, and everybody's gone at that point.
That's right. Yep, totally.
Dude,
it's good.
This has honestly been a really fun and enlightening interview. Like, I'm really excited to connect with you offline and just figure out what mountains I've conquered that could really help people out through my story, and like your structure for how you share and how you get stuff out of people. I've never heard it put like that, and it's very intriguing to me.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I want to encourage people listening. Like, I think this is a great podcast. You put a lot of work into it. Man. It's clear. Like, this isn't just a podcast you do and you're on the phone. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you put a lot of production value into it. And I think I want to encourage people to subscribe, like this, share this with another dude that you think could find some value in it. And I think your communities that you're building up is super valuable. Dudes need to be around other dudes. And not just at coffee shops and stuff, but dudes connect shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. And we want to be doing stuff together and talking about it. I think that's what's great about what you're produced and are producing. So I want to encourage people to check that out too. And that's a plug from me to you that you didn't ask for, but I really think what you got is valuable.
No, dude,
thank you for having me on.
Very grateful for that. Yeah, grateful for you to be here and to share your story in this format and share, like, dude, I'm telling you, the depth. People might not realize it, because maybe you and I are at a different place in our lives than some guys who are a little, newer to the game, the personal development game or the self-reflection game or the self-awareness game. I'm telling you right now, I've got thousands and thousands of hours in this. I've never seen structure like this when it comes to sharing a story. And this changes my game. You being on, just for the audience to know, like, this now changes my game and my world in the mental purpose stuff. So, like, you really, like, thank you. You did some game changing today, man. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm sure, dude, we're going to have you back on this. You and I could probably go like another 2 hours and just hang out and have fun.
You're a great interviewer.
Thanks,
I appreciate this. Thank you for having me on.
Jeremy Brown, where can people find you?
Well, I think, the best thing to do is you can go to all the search engines and stuff, but we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, thronepg.com. I'm sure you have the links and stuff. But I think, if I could give one quick final word in here as we're checking out, it would be to find somebody like an Ian, like a friend, like a peer who is willing to sit with you and bear witness to whatever you're going through or whatever you have gone through, to find those things. That is the burn process, is sifting it through. You can't do it alone though. You got to go find somebody. So that'd be my call to action, and to keep moving forward in that.
Yeah, man. Look, I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of guys that come to me and I have them fill out a form. Hey, buddy. And I'll say, why a coach, not a therapist? And they'll say a therapist had an agenda. And that's the main reason I get. And they'll say, a therapist has an agenda to keep me coming back. And the one thing that I say to people that I didn't like about therapists is, whether you help me or not, I'm just supposed to come back. I've had one therapist that said, you're here for 6 months. If you're past 6 months, you're not doing the work and I'll fire you. And I was like, oh. And so I started to build an understanding of a coaching business around that, which is, I don't want to sell you anything else. If you want to buy more from us, you can. If you want to stay in our world, you can. I really want, and this hasn't always been my philosophy, but it is like in the last probably 6 months, I don't want you here forever. I want to be so influential to you, empower you so much that you can get your shit together and get your shit online and authentic and aligned, that you move out into the world as a man on purpose and do your influencing out there. And then bring it back to the community and tell us what you've done. If you're here for years and years and years and you're in the same cycles, I've failed. So things like this, the way that I show up on here and the way that I encourage guests to show up, this is me out in the world demonstrating what it's like to be a man on purpose, running a podcast called Man on Purpose. So thanks for your recognition. Oh my God. Recognition. What the? Recognition.
Yeah, there we go. Nailed
it. Recognition of what we're doing here, man. It's very powerful. It's really near and dear to our hearts. So, awesome. Dude, we're gonna have everything in the show notes for everybody. We're gonna have all this stuff written out. We're gonna have the burn process out. We're gonna have like everything that Jeremy described in detail here. We will write that out in the show notes. You can copy and paste. You can do whatever you want with it because there's no competition here. It's all a giant cooperation among men to grow and evolve together.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me on.
Yep.
I really, and I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to stay connected with you. So, guys, have a great night. I so appreciate you having me on, and it's been a blast. You're a great interviewer.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. And, guys, if you want more information about Jeremy, go to thronepg.com. You can find out more about him. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We'll provide all that in the show notes. If you haven't yet joined the Men on Purpose community, get on there. Be on purpose. Join the Men on Purpose community. There's free coaching. There's free resources. You've got this as a free resource. Our job is to provide as much value and then help you along the way however you can. Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.